need not say that it's not about dictatorship of the fanatics. So what is it then? So essentially, I would say that it's a political consciousness that respects, first of all, that respects faith and says that faith is a matter of personal choice. It's in the personal realm. The state should have nothing to do with faith. That's the first thing. Okay, because we said earlier, it's not about faith. It's not anti-faith. It's not about faith, but it says that yes, we respect faith. Hindutva is not about faith, but it's a matter of personal choice. It's in the personal realm. It's not in the realm of politics and state. The second thing is, and this is a bit open to discussion, it's about reconciliation and harmonious coexistence. Now here the question might be that whether you can really have reconciliation of ideologies that are in fundamental conflict with each other. And just this morning I got into a discussion online with someone who says, if a faith comes to you and says it's our fundamental duty to convert you, now what do you do? Because this is in fundamental conflict. Because if everyone starts saying that this is our fundamental duty to convert you, then of course there's going to be a huge societal conflict. And so can you really have harmonious coexistence between conflicting ideologies? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But certainly the belief is that yes, we could have. And as I said before, this is not about religion or faith, but it's more rooted in the culture and civilization. So it's more culture and civilization specific, not really about religion, not about theocracy, and it's essentially a philosophical construct. Let me get to a bit more practical things. Okay, so in practical terms, what would this political philosophy mean? What would it mean in practical terms? So you can talk a lot about consciousness and so on and so forth, but if you are going to talk about a political philosophy, we need to get down to some practicalities and specifics. And so there are 4 or 5 things I'll share, and then I'll just stop. And I think these 4 or 5 things could be the pillars or the defining basis for this political philosophy. Now, what are these 5 things? The first one is national interest, okay? And the primacy of national interest. What we call Rashtra. Now, here again, I should say I'm making this deliberately simplistic. And so, the primacy of national interest, what does this mean? National interest lies in the safeguarding the freedoms and well-being of citizens. Okay, so all decisions of the state must therefore take that as a fundamental. So that national interest must be the primary basis, or certainly the overarching basis for any decisions which affect society at large. So you can translate it as in Hindi. I've written that most of you would be able to read it. What it means is Rashtra Sarva Pratham, so that nation above all. So that's the primacy of national interest. Okay. The second one, which flows from this freedom, free thought thing, and this is pretty obvious. I don't need to spend too much time. But Hindutva is about liberalism. It's about individual freedom. It's about liberty, and this is well documented. So I don't think this is open to discussion. I've fairly well understood and as is documented as well. Of course, this liberalism owes its traditions to the dharmic tradition within the Sanatana Dharma and all the associated belief systems in there. Now, the third one, rule of law. And here I found a very interesting quote from the Mahabharata, which said that a king, talking about the Raj Dharma, as you know, at the end of the war, Bhishma, there's an entire discourse by Bhishma Pitama on Raj Dharma. And in that, it mentions that the king who performs Raj Dharma selflessly. And what is Raj Dharma? It's essentially treating their subject even-handedly, which is rule of law, correct? I mean, the rule of law says, okay, subject should be treated even-handedly. You should enforce the laws of the state. And this discourse says a king who does that reaches the highest position of a sannyasi. Which is quite interesting, which means actually you could make a very strong case for saying Hindutva actually is about rule of law, and that would, in many ways, is the ultimate dharma, is upholding. In fact, as you know, that is one of the meanings of dharma, is upholding the law. Now you can here have digress a little bit about what is rule of law and so on. And for example, when the British were in India, would upholding their rule be rule of law? Now here I would say no, that was an unjust. So not really. Okay, but rule of law, that's the third thing. And the fourth one, for which I'm still trying to find a lot of basis, and it actually runs here. Now the problems begin, okay, on this slide and the next one. To a lot of people, Hindutva is identified very, very closely with uniform civil code, correct? And of course, Conrad Gundala. That has been one of the basis of the Hindutva movement, uniform civil code. As you know, just as not as much as Ayodhya, but certainly, you know, every time people talk about Hindutva, they say, oh, you should have uniform civil code. However, really, should you have a uniform civil code? I mean, should communities not be free to choose their own laws? A civil code, mind you, yes, criminal code, yes, but civil code, it's highly debatable, and you can argue, and actually classical liberalism suggests that communities should be open and free to choose their own laws, as indeed some of our own ancient accounts or traditions and history, that communities were free to have their own laws. But as I said, this runs counter to a lot of things that traditional Hindutvavadis would say, that they would say, no, of course everyone must have the same civil law. Now we are talking about civil laws, okay, specifically here. But that's why I said this is a bit controversial. That should the government limit itself to just a few things, law and order, justice, security and so on, and let everything else be decided by society? Which, by the way, doesn't run counter to the tradition of Hinduism. And this is exactly the position that a classical liberal would take in a modern context, okay? But the traditional Hindutvavadis would find great offense if I say this. They'll say, no, how can you say that there shouldn't be a uniform civil code? It becomes very controversial. And then the last slide, which is about economic prosperity, which gets even more controversial because, of course, traditional Hindutva and Hinduism, or not Hinduism so much, but traditional Hindu writers have almost always rallied against capitalism, saying it is evil and so on and so forth. It's very odd that the left and Hindutvadis find themselves on the same side of argument when it comes to capitalism versus socialism. What I'm going to say, actually, is that Hindutva is very much against socialism. It is very much for capitalism. It is very much for economic freedoms. It actually celebrates wealth. Sorry, I'm coming in the way. It actually celebrates wealth. There is no shame to being rich in Hinduism, provided, of course, that the money wasn't earned in a dishonest way. But unlike a lot of other, religious and philosophical beliefs, Hinduism, there's no problem in being well-to-do. And as you know, Artha, of course, is one of the Purusharthas. And that doesn't mean, obscene wealth or wealth obtained through plunder or dishonest means. But if that is true, then yes, Hindutva can happily coexist with prosperity, with economic development, with capitalism, and of course, with economic freedoms. Okay? So, as I said, a lot of this is work in progress. And it's deliberately, I'm making statements in the form of assertions to provoke you. If you ask me, okay, show me proof, I would probably struggle to find you evidence for a lot of statements which I made. But having said that, I don't think they are that outrageous that you can't support them, or at least start a debate around, yes, you can actually say that, and then let's find evidence to support these things. For example, just shared with you evidence about rule of law, about how that's core part of Raj Dharma is rule of law, or about Raj Dharma is indeed about national interest. So I will stop here. And the next step, I want you to keep thinking about this. This attempt is also with keeping that in mind, that perhaps it becomes an ideology that can actually replace the prevailing ideology of socialism and all the rest that we see in India today. Okay, so the next step is effectively essentially to articulate it, to refine it, to make it more robust, to bring in more evidence, and to create an entire system around which this can be articulated and which can, basically stand debate and discussion and questions, of course. So I'll stop here, and most of all, I'm very keen to hear Conrad's immediate reaction, because I know he has strong views, and I'm sure some of you would have views as well. I'm very happy to take questions and respond to your comments. Thank you, Vinay.